Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Digital to Dice podcast. I am Dave.
I'm Ron.
And Ron, this is episode 118. You got anything?
Wow.
You got anything? No?
No.
Oh, we ran out of numbers
a long. Quiz on this.
We ran out of numbers a long time ago. Or whatever. But anyway, let me see. Ways to get a hold of us. Digitaltodice.com. That's our website where we park all the shows over on Spreaker. 978-751-DICE. Send us a text, 978-751-3423. I've been having some really good conversations with people on some of the games they're playing over there. Our email, digitaltodice@yahoo.com is the email. And over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. In
900 strong.
Oh, it's getting there. Yeah, we're getting up there. It is. It's a fun group to be a part of. Anyway, on today's show, wow, we got a great one here. We have not one guest, but we have two guests on the show. It's a double. It's a double for your trouble.
2 hosts and 2 guests.
2 hosts and 2 guests here, as we have Matt McKeever and Craig Harris. They are the creators of Pocket Pennant Run. You might have seen that new baseball game come out. It's been all over YouTube. It's been on Facebook as well. But yeah, let's check them out here. Pocket Pennant Run with Matt McKeever and Craig Harris. Joining us on the dice line, we have the creators and the developers of the brand new baseball game, Pocket Pennant Run. Let's welcome Matt McKeever and Craig Harris to the show. Welcome, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
Good to have you here. Ron, I think this is the first time we've had 2 guests on the show, isn't it?
It's been a while.
Yeah.
But we have 2, pretty creative people with us today. So.
Yep, this is a new game that just come out. It's called Pocket Pennant Run, and since it come out, I've been addicted to it since I watched Kirk Berglund's videos. It's like, wow, this is a fun game. And it was actually Ron that sent me a message. He goes, Dave, you need to check out this game. I think this would be the baseball game for you. And I checked it out, and here I am a few days later, and I just can't stop playing this game. It's so addictive to play. So I want to thank you guys for coming on the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Before we get going here and talk about the game, we have one question that we ask all of our guests before we get going. And we'll start with Craig, okay? Craig, I'm going to ask you this question here, and then we'll go to Matt. If you could go back in time and attend any sporting event, what would that event be? And we'll start with Craig.
I think I'd have loved to go back and watched Ali in his early days. As he was coming up. I think that would have been really interesting to be in the crowd.
Matt?
I would probably choose probably the early 80s. I'm a Cardinals fan. Probably early 80s Cardinals, 82, Smith, McGee, Lou Brock, all these really incredible players. I'd love to watch that era of Cardinals baseball.
Oh, that's kind of cool. So a baseball guy going back to baseball games, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. It's always fun to get the answers for this. So some people come up with some really different things, and other people are semi-predictable, you know what I mean? But it's kind of fun getting the answers anyway. All righty, so let's get right into things, shall we? So Matt, let's start with you. What got you into gaming? What are some of the first games that you played?
I was actually sort of recently kind of got into the tabletop sports game. It was a pandemic thing for me, which I think for a lot of people it was. Yeah, I was very casual, gamer, and I've always loved baseball, and I've been really into fantasy baseball and stuff like that. But it wasn't until we were all kind of forced to be at home and do nothing that I started playing more baseball games and more board games, and then kind of getting into these baseball games and checking things out. And I think I sort of accidentally stumbled across Dead Ball, the W.M. Akers game, and just immediately fell in love with the game.
Explain that, because that's not even one I've heard of.
Really? Okay. Yeah. So Dead Ball, it's been around for about 5 years now. W.M. Akers is the guy who made it. He's a playwright and a novelist, but he also made this baseball dice game. And it's available online, and you can get it for like $10. But it's a really easy playing game. There's very few charts involved. There's not player cards. You use player statistics and input those into the score sheet. And I got really into that game definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. It's just called Dead Ball. He's made about 4 different editions of it now. I think he's working on the 5th one now. But
primarily focused on pre-1919, or
no, that's just the name of the game. You can. The thing is, you can take stats from any player from any era and convert them into what you use for the game. So it's not really tied to any seasons or cards or anything like that. You can just use the stuff off the back of a baseball card. But it's a really, really great game. And I got really into that game. And then that's how I met Craig too. Craig was running a dead ball league, so I joined one of his leagues. And since then, I've started to get into some of these other games like Strat and APBA and learn more about those games, and also just check out the things people have been sharing online. But I'm relatively new, honestly. It just in about the last year and a half, 2 years is when I really started getting into this stuff, and I'm amazed by the community and the size of the community, the dedication of the community, of people who are really into these games. I haven't really stretched out yet into other sports, but I'd love to try a hockey game at some point. I'm not much of a football guy myself, but I do love hockey, so I'd love to try a hockey game at some point, but still pretty new to the whole scene.
Matt, I'm relatively new myself. We've been doing the show 2.5 years, and I think it was only 6 months or 9 months before that I started playing some of these sim games. And again, I was a video game guy for 40 years, and then I started, and I couldn't believe how fun these games are, and now I'm addicted to them, and I got a show talking about them and the whole bit. But I'm still in the scheme of things, I am relatively new myself. Craig, how about you? What got you into gaming? What are some of your first games you played?
Well, I grew up in a family of board games, and then as I went in the Navy, our downtime was playing war games, board games, 1812, and any of the war games that were there. That was our weekend spent, Friday to Sunday. And again, the pandemic brought me along into the sports arena. I wasn't much into some of the early sports games just because of the amount of cards you had to buy, the amount of charts, and it just was overwhelming. I don't know, for some reason, the level in war games was not daunting as it was in the baseball arena.
Okay. Craig, we'll stick with you. Have you developed any other games, or is this the first game that you've done? Craig? Did we lose Craig?
Well, he was there.
I'm back.
He's back. We're talking about, have you developed any games before this one?
Well, in the early 2000s, I worked on a NASCAR game back before computers were really around. I'd say late 1990s, and all the data by hand. I had notebooks. My kid still laughs about the amount of notebooks I had on the data of all the drivers. And as I was getting ready to go into production, this is before any of your game crafters or any other these businesses that help you do this. We got into the licensing issue, and the amount of money that NASCAR wanted kind of closed it off for me.
So
that kind of went to the side, and life took on a different role. But I've always kind of been in the game arena, developing personally for myself, taking board games, turning them into computer versions, and especially of late.
Oh, great. Matt, how about you?
The first game that I made was a game called Small Ball, which was it was a baseball game as well, but it was a pressure luck dice game. It didn't involve any players. It was pretty light. It's something that's more or less supposed to kind of introduce you to the rules of baseball and some of the strategy. So there's like a hit and run, there's a steal, there's bunting, there's sacrificing in the game, but it's all presented in a very, very light, kid-friendly board game. So that was the first game that I developed, and that was about a year and a half ago, pretty early on when I started getting into these games. And that's kind of what pushed me into getting into more of these baseball games, was developing that game.
Okay, and yeah, so let's kind of dovetail into this game here, Pocket Pennant Run. How Matt, how did you and Craig come together on this, and what made you decide to create this game?
Well, we like I said, I met Craig. He was running a dead ball league, and I played a season in his league and really enjoyed it. It was one of the most fun things I ever did. And we got to talking about a second season. He and I started working on the rules and tweaking the rules for the league and stuff like that. And I think we both sort of shared a mutual agreement that we didn't enjoy games that had too many charts. Neither of us liked games that had way too many charts. We kind of started talking about, like, how could we boil things down to create a game that, that doesn't have too many charts, something that can be played relatively easily, something that's not intimidating. So I started checking out a bunch of different games, from the really advanced games to the simplest little games that you could buy for $10, and just reading rule books. Honestly, I would sit down and read probably a dozen different rule books of games, and I was always fascinated by the mechanics of, like, how does this game approach a hit and run? How does this game approach runners taking extra bases on a base hit, and I started compiling all these different ideas and taking the ones that I liked and leaving out the ones that I didn't like. And we sort of slowly started to focus in on this picture of this game that would only require these few couple of charts. It would require a couple dice. And so there's little footprints and remnants of probably like 8 or 10 different games all kind of put together in here, and then way boiled down and way simplified to something that's really digestible. Craig and I would just talk about this stuff all the time and talk about, like, what would be the easiest way to do a bunt, and a lot of it came from this dead ball league and stuff that we talked about previously. So it was just a long series of studying other games and figuring out ways to make it really, really approachable for the casual fan.
So what is your target audience for this game? I'll go with Matt with that one.
We didn't really know what the target audience would be, but it seems like what it's actually turned out to be are guys who really enjoy the heavier games, your strats and your APBAs and your payoff pitch and your history maker, but want something maybe lighter just to play for like 30 minutes. They're not, maybe it's a night where you don't want to sit down and cover the whole table and play for an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. You just want to pull out a couple cards and play for 30 minutes. And I think that's great. I think that's a great audience. I sort of think of it as like, someone who really likes an advanced board game, but sometimes just wants to chuck some dice for 20 minutes and play I guess board gamers call them fillers, games that are just, you play it in between, maybe as a break from a bigger game. So maybe you're like in the thick of this really big like season replay using some other game, but you just want to roll a quick game.
A palate cleanser.
Totally. Exactly. So that's kind of what it's turned into. But I also think there's a way for it to sort of be an introduction to people.
Yes.
Sims. I really appreciate.
We were talking about that, Dave.
Yes.
Yeah, I really appreciate what Kurt Berglund has been saying about the game, that maybe this is the direction that Sims are moving to, something that's more approachable, that has a small footprint, but then also has an online component. That's a little bit more approachable to where, I know when I see a game and it comes with 15 pages of charts and stuff like that, immediately I'm like, I don't know, this seems a little bit daunting, but we hope that when you look at our game, it doesn't seem daunting at all,
And Craig, how did the software element come into it? I think that is the hidden gem in this, is what it comes with. How did you come up with that concept?
It actually was based on the fact that I have pretty good arthritis in my writing hand, and the filling out of the scorecards, I would have to take an hour break so that my hand could play the game. And then by then, you lose, your life comes, you go a different direction. Next thing you know, it's 2 days later and you're finally starting the game. And I knew there had to be an easier way. I've programmed since I was 7. And my dad was a NASA engineer, and I don't doubt we had probably the first computer before Steve Jobs came around. He had built a computer built out of tubes, and we had 8-inch floppy disks. I learned Fortran on this.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So I've been programming since I was 7. And I knew there had to be an easier way that I could get my score sheets done, have data ready to go, and just play the game. And that's basically what started the whole program.
Nice.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. So let's talk about what you get in this game, and then we'll talk a little bit about gameplay. Then we'll get into a little bit about the software. So, so Matt, so what do you get with this game now? As far as if I order this game, what do I get?
Sure.
Okay.
there's two different versions right now. The physical version is currently out of stock, but it should be in stock here in just the next week or two. But if you order the physical game, I don't have one with me right now, but it comes in a small box, really a very small box, about this big, and you're going to get the 8 charts. All the 8 charts come on cards like this. They're just small.
And they're the size of about a playing card. So,
yeah, they're exactly the size of a playing card.
Okay.
And they're 8 little charts. And usually what I do is I kind of spread them out in front of me. But you can also get them on a sheet as well. It's pretty easy to get them on a sheet as well. If you get the PDF version, you're going to get the 8 charts. There you go. Yeah, all printed in color.
Yeah, I printed out mine, so I got the PDF version. So I printed out mine on one sheet, and I just have it on a stand-up clipboard, and I don't separate mine. And it's my one chart on one piece of paper, and everything's right in front of me. So that's kind of how I play it.
Yeah.
When I played last night, because I used 2 monitors to stream, I just put it on my streaming monitor.
Yeah, you can do it however you want. We did it in the cards that would fit into the small box. But you're going to get the 8 chart cards, and you're going to get 8 cards that have statistics for the 8 playoff teams from the most recent year, so 2021. So the 8 playoff teams. We didn't include the wild card teams, but we included the 8 main teams that made it to the championship series. I'm sorry, the division series. And that's kind of just to whet your appetite to get you playing from the moment you open the box. But really, obviously, the software is what's going to get you all the information for all the teams and all the leagues, basically.
Okay, so whether you order physical or PDF, you do get all the seasons that I have, right? Correct, okay. Yeah. So if you order, whether you order physical or whether you order the PDF, so the physical is going to get you the chart. In 8 separate playing cards, so to speak, instead of just one chart on the PDF.
And the dice as well.
And so you get the dice, and you're going to get some current teams to play in a printed form. But with either order, you get PDFs for a ton of seasons.
PDFs and software. The PDFs, we made the PDFs for folks who weren't able to download the software, or they didn't have a PC, which I think Craig is going to talk about that here in a second.
Yep.
We have kind of an exciting announcement, I think. But we included the PDFs. But really, if you have a PC, you can get the software, which allows you to print your scorecards, sim games, look up historical statistics for players. Like it's so much more than just the PDFs. PDFs were just kind of a
that's what I did first. Is I printed out all the PDFs for 1980 again, because I just got the game the first night. I said, okay, let me print them all out so I have them here and look at them and make them look nice, and then I can play my games. And I started playing a couple games, and it was kind of fun. And then I said, let me check out the software, and then that's what we'll turn over to Craig here. So I said, let's see what this software is all about. And this is included with the game, by the way, the software. So again, whether you get the physical or you get the PDF version, you do get all the MLB seasons going back to what, 18 what?
Everyone, 76.
1871.
1871.
Back to the old NA.
That's right. That's right. Way back then. And then you get Negro leagues, you get Japanese leagues, and holy cow, the amount of teams and leagues that you get with this thing is pretty incredible. And so you get those all PDF. So if you want, you can print them all out, correct? Am I correct with that?
Yes.
Yes, okay. But the big thing is the software that comes in with this game. And Craig will talk to you about that. Now, what I have found with this software is that you load a team. It loads all the players that come on the card, and then you put together your batting order, save that, pick another team, do the same thing, save that, and then down on the bottom right of the software, you select your 2 teams, you select the saved roster, so to speak, and then that will print a PDF out of that game. And there's a couple different options for the PDF too. One of them is the 1 to 10 innings setup, which that's the one I like to use. And there's also one how many like bats each player takes. And you have the option of printing out two pages, one for each team. That's the one I like to use because it includes my bullpen on there. And I like to have my bullpen, and I throw bench players on there. So I like to have everything in front of me. And the other option is that both teams on one sheet of paper. So the software allows you to – you don't even need the cards. really, when you use the software. If you know the guys that played in the game, you just set it all up. You do your thing. You save your batting order, and then you print out the two teams. And I like that. So I have two pieces of paper in front of me, the one chart, and that's all I need to play this game, aside from dice. So, Craig, talk a little bit about that software.
Well, again, it came back to the score sheets and having all your players there. And like Matt and I both met each other in a league. And so when you have 8, 10, 12 teams, writing those down every time became cumbersome.
Yes.
So when you can load that team in and you set that lineup that one time, you check it before your week starts, and then you're printing your 3 games, your 5 games, or whatever your series is in a matter of seconds. And that was what drew me to it. And then we gave different styles of score sheets for what you might like. The new one, the AB one, the at-bat one, that's new to me, but it was an interesting way to play it. And then you have the traditional scorecard with 2 teams on it, like you said. And then I like the one that you like, Dave, it has the bullpen, it has your bench on there, and you've cut out an extra card of holding on to during the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and on this, not only do you have the batting order in order and the pitchers, everybody's ratings is on here. And that was the big part about playing baseball games for me. It's like setting up the score sheet. It really was. For me, that was kind of daunting. It's just like I either got to write everybody's name down and all their qualities or all their levels, whatever you want to call them, their ratings for everybody. It's 18 batters I got to do, plus the pitchers. It was taking me a long time to set up. Either that or I take all the cards and lay them out on the table. Now I get a pretty big footprint here that I'm looking at. So for me, this is beautiful because I will set my rosters, I'll print it out, and I like the 2 pages, and I just play off the 2 pages there, and I don't even need the team cards anymore. This was a genius idea with this software, and I think you can even simulate a game in this software, correct?
Oh yes, you can. It's a full simulation. It prints out a game, a blow by blow, so to speak, at the end. You can set your starters. You can also set up to 2 relievers with conditions on when they enter the game.
Oh, wow.
Whether your pitcher hits a certain level, through his fatigue rating, or at a certain point of innings. If your starter's set for 5 innings and then he drops his fatigue, you can set your reliever to come in the 6th inning automatically. And then you can set a second reliever to relieve him. And I thought that was pretty neat. It works fairly well. And it's a fairly good, accurate sim. And then you can just hit the button again, and there's a play again button. You hit it, and you sim the entire game a second time, a third time.
Nice.
And then it saves a full gameplay for you to go back and review. And it's included with what the pitcher's rating was, who the batter was, and even the rolls of the dice. So you could even go back and say, hey, how did that fall out on the charts? So you can actually play through the chart.
That's quite cool.
Wow.
Yeah, when Craig first sent that, I just sat there and just hit the replay button over and over. It was just fascinating to watch it just spit out a full game of data. I was blown away. To me, that's the coolest part of the software, is watching it sim the games.
And we were able to really test the game out because we could tweak the chart.
Oh, of course you could.
Oh, yeah.
And then run it 50 times and have some results sitting there on how did that tweak the chart.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it really is. Let's see here. So this is not a final score. First of all, let me talk about how it plays here, because it's not a final score game. It's not like a wicked hardcore sim. It's somewhere in the middle there. So how you play is you got 3 dice. You have a red die, a yellow die, and a blue die, 12-sided. Okay, and so you roll all 3 dice, whatever. And you look at the red first, and you look at the number of the die, comparing it to the pitcher's rating, A, B, C, D. That gives you a result. Sometimes it's a strikeout, and you're done right there. Other times you need to go check the yellow die, and that will be either a defensive check, a batter check, or a control check. And then lastly, sometimes you need to check the blue die to wrap up the play. So the play finishes on usually one roll. Occasionally, you'll need to roll the blue die again to get some other result. But for the most part, once you roll those 3 die, that is the end of the play. So that's how quickly it goes. Again, there's one chart, one page of charts. They're the size of playing cards. There's 8 of them. I choose to print out one page and keep them all together. But again, there are 8 little playing card sizes of charts. And that's it. It's the 3 die. You roll it once. You look at the chart. You get your play. And that's the end of the at-bat. So that's kind of how it plays. Matt, would you say that's about accurate?
Yeah, it is. And that's kind of the philosophy we have when we made the game was we want you to be able to see the play unfold, but we want it to be all just based on one roll. And the cool thing is once you start getting a feel for what the charts are like, now I personally haven't memorized, I don't think we'll ever get to the point where we have the charts memorized. But you sort of know how the charts work. The higher numbers tend to benefit the offense, the lower numbers tend to benefit the defense. So kind of the cool thing is when you make a roll and you see a bunch of 10s and 11s and 12s, you start getting excited because you're like, something has happened here, something exciting, or you get really nervous depending on, what team you have there. But then you have to consult your charts, which only takes 3 seconds, look down the chart. But I like that aspect. And that was sort of an unexpected thing that happened with the gameplay. It's, oh, wow, once you start memorizing or once you realize, the way the numbers work, you can start to kind of predict what's happened before it happens. But then once you consult the chart, you know exactly what happened.
And the game moves along pretty quick because I'm getting faster and faster because now if I have an A or a B pitcher and that red die is a 1, it's a strikeout. I don't got to go any further. It's great. And I know if I roll over a 7 on the red die, I'm going right to the batter's card. So, again, there's a lot of that you get used to. And you can, much like APA, like Ron talks about APA, memorizing the rolls in APA all the time so you don't have to look at the chart anymore. And the game speeds up pretty quick with that. I played the other day. I was in extra innings, bottom of the 10th, and Cerrone come up for the Yankees, and I rolled 11, 12, 12. And I didn't even have to look. It's a home run. Sure. And it was like that end, the leadoff home run in the bottom of the 10th, and the Yankees win the game. They go to the World Series. And that was so cool seeing that come up on the dice. So as you said, it's great. And I do like that, the lower numbers really tend to favor the defense, and the higher numbers tend to favor the offense. And then in the middle, there's a little mix of stuff there. I do like that. The pitcher's card, it's not necessarily good, and the batter's card is not necessarily good. There's a mixture on both, which I think that creates some drama. And Ron and I talk all the time about, you like to have drama. You don't want to look and say, okay, the play's over. I know what it is. But there's some drama. Unless you roll extreme high and extreme low, there's going to be some drama in there as well. So how would you classify this game? Again, it's not a quick play final score game. It's not a wicked hardcore game that's going to take you an hour to play. How would you guys classify this, and who is your target for this?
Go ahead, Craig.
I'd say it's a nice 30-minute escape from reality. Jump into a ballpark and just be with the guys. Target, we've got guys playing from 18 up to 70 right now. And they're actually coming into one of our first inaugural leagues that we're starting in about a week or so. I think it's open for anybody. Anybody that has some idea of baseball can play this game. And even I think a kid could be taught really quickly.
I was telling that, Craig, to Dave. I said if I was to take a baseball game for someone who had never seen a baseball game like this before, this would be the one I would show. Just because the results come quickly. There's no math to be done. You cross-check some things and you move on to the next at bat.
Yeah, that was part of some of the other games was that the math, you're having to constantly do the mental math. And if you're tired, you just want to escape and play a game real quick. You don't want to think. You don't want to have to be calculating, what's this die with this die and this die going to make it be. You just roll the dice, and Matt's got it ingeniously laid out. 3 die, you're done. Let's go next batter. But you still get all the reality and the authenticity of the at-bat.
Can I ask, I guess, Matt, the decision to go with 12-sided die as opposed to a 10 or a 20?
Honestly, it's because I like the way they feel.
Okay.
I like the way a 12-sided die feels. I don't like a 10-sided die because it's that weird kind of diamond shape. But we needed more results than, say, 6 or 10. Now, 16-sided die is kind of rare. 20-sided die was almost too many results. 12 just seemed to be the right number. It was simple enough because, if you're looking at these cards, if you started adding 20 results, it's too small.
It would be difficult to do, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So 12 was just sort of the sweet spot that checked all the boxes for me. I tried all sorts of things. I tried 20-sided dies. I tried, even just kind of how the dice rolls worked for a while. And I think Craig probably remembers this. We just had like 2 dice that we used. But I don't like the feeling of rolling 2 dice. There's something about rolling 3 dice or rolling like a handful of dice that's kind of exciting. I think 3 is kind of the sweet spot. So honestly, there was almost like an aesthetic sort of tactile thought process to it too. Like, honestly, I think that rolling 3 dice feels the best. So that's what I went with.
I would know. Okay. And so also, this game is for cross-era play. I mean, with the amount of teams there, obviously you can do what Dave's doing and play 2 teams from the same year. But if you really want to do the 27 Yankees and the 62 Mets, you're set up to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Talk about that for 1 second there.
What's the thought behind that?
Ron and I talk about the cross-era play all the time. How difficult is that to achieve? And just talk about that.
I think it was challenging to achieve, and we talked about this kind of before the show started. The consolation you have to make when you're playing across eras is you sort of have to find a middle ground between the two. So in order for them to play fairly, because realistically, I think if you had players from 2021 playing against players from 1919, I don't know, maybe different people will think differently, but I think the players in 2021 would just smoke them. Like, it wouldn't even be close. Just the level of talent and just the bar that's been raised, in all sports. I think it would just be completely unfair. So how do you make the generally unfair become fair?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to sort of find a middle ground. So in our game, what we ended up having to do was, while the ratings are not all based on the same formulas, the charts are all the same. And there's only 4 ratings, A, B, C, and D. So you're kind of limited in how expansive your ratings can be. And we wanted it so that teams would play evenly across eras. So basically what that means is your teams from 1919 are going to hit roughly the same amount of home runs as your teams from 2021. Now, if you've got a really good team from 2021, a really heavy home run hitting team, they should hit more home runs than a not as good team from 1919. But that's the consolation we made, and we consciously made that choice, knowing that you're going to have guys from the early 20th century who are hitting as many home runs as guys from the 21st century, and that we understand that that's not quote unquote realistic, but it was worth it so that you could play teams across other eras. Do you agree with that, Craig? Is that kind of?
Oh yeah, and then you also have to realize it's all up to the dice gods.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
The dice gods definitely favor teams. They, you can see I watched Ronald Acuna the other night strike out 4 times. He's done it in the game, realistic, but the dice gods pick on people in that game, and it does come down to probability. Sometimes you can watch a team go on a hit and run, a hitting spree and score 10 runs in an inning, and then changing a column and 3 up, 3 down.
Mm-hmm.
So with the charts, it really does even the playing field with the teams.
I did a game yesterday. My first game was the 86 Sox against the 2004 Red Sox. And so did my lineups and all that. And I said to Dave, I said, if I didn't know any better, I would kind of question it, because Wade Boggs struck out 3 times in the game. Kurt Schilling struck him out 3 times. Yeah. And I said, I got the general concept. That would never happen. And then I went to Baseball Reference and looked. And in the first game of the 1986 season, Jack Morris struck out Wade Boggs 3 times.
Oh wow!
And so it's like no. So you just kind of one of those rare things with that. other question then I would ask is, are there plans to maybe do different strategy sets for eras?
Honestly, we're going to leave that to the community because we're pretty set on how we do things.
You like what you have.
Well, we're open to suggestions for sure, but the idea was to have one set of charts that you could use. If you decide to create other charts for other eras, it's totally up to you.
Okay.
But for us, it always goes back to this philosophy of, keep it simple, and we want to keep things as simple as possible. And if we start releasing, well, here's your dead ball era chart, here's your steroid era chart, it gets pretty convoluted pretty quickly. So we're going to leave that up to the community and let folks come up with their own. I think Kurt kind of called them homebrew rules, which is great. We think it's awesome. And like I was talking to Craig about, we take that as a huge compliment that people take enough interest in the game to want to tweak it and refine it and fit it to their personal wants and needs. And that's great. But we're going to try to keep things as simple as possible and keep things as sort of open source as possible and let people do what they please with it.
Yeah, I think you need to have a starting point, and I was playing a game last night. It was like, the World Series, the Yankees and the Astros, they ended up sweeping the Kansas City Royals and the Philadelphia Phillies in my replay. And was it Ron Guidry and Rule? Right, we're pitching.
Guidry and Rule,
and
right.
I think it was like 1-0 going into the 7th, and they only had a 6 fatigue rating. So while I was playing the game, I was talking to Ron, and Ron's like, I know the game says to drop them a level, but they're pitching so well. Maybe just keep them at that level for another inning or so. So we were kicking around some homebrew ideas of ourselves of like, wow, we got these pitchers just mowing guys down. That maybe they're in the zone, and maybe we don't need to kind of follow that exact rule for fatigue and drop them a level. Maybe, we continue on a little bit. So there's these little tweaks that we're finding in the game that it's like, the core game is fantastic, but, I think you got to go on feel sometime for what's going on in your game. If they're getting hit and racked around, then maybe he didn't give up those 4 runs to get to the fatigue level, but maybe he's given up 11 hits, and you're like, okay, I think he's getting hit, so I'm going to drop his grade down. So there's a lot of like common sense things in that game.
Talk a bit about how you came up with that for fatigue.
That was, I've seen a number of games that involve fatigue in some semblance. Some games just have a set number, like for example, dead ball. I think it says after 6 innings, the guy drops a die. I've seen other games that say 7 innings. I know there's games that say 3rd time around the batting order, ratings drop, which I like that a lot too, because that's very, very supported by analytics. But what we did is we looked up a guy's average outing, and that became his fatigue number. And it's funny that you mentioned that, Dave, about how, if a guy's cruising, you keep his rating the same. And there are games that do that, and there's actually people who have suggested that. Personally, I think the opposite. I think a lot of times when guys are pitching a complete game shutout, by the end of the game, they're running on fumes. And I really like that idea. Is that a guy like parts are falling off the car, but he's going to drive that car home no matter what, And I like that idea, but that's what makes the game great. Is I feel one way about it, but that's not saying that that's the only way you can do it. If you, like you said, you can go on feel. So. Like I said, there's little bits and pieces of a lot of different games in our game. Not so much that it would be a copy of another game, but enough that it's, there are little tiny things. And Craig and I both have things that we like about certain games that we're like, well, let's keep this in, let's not keep this in. But you can do whatever you want with it. You know?
The one thing on the software, Craig, that I picked up on the other day, because when I went to play this World Series or even the playoffs, was it Rudy May run the pitcher?
Rudy May, who was in the Yankee pen to start the year, but he was a starter the second half of the year.
Yeah, so he was a relief.
He was rated as a 2 because that's what he would have been as a reliever, but as a starter, he should have been a 7.
So what I needed to do is in the software you can edit the players. So I went into Rudy May and I edited him to be a starting pitcher. And what I did is kind of following your fatigue rules for bringing in long relievers. I dropped him from an A to a B rating, and I saved him. And now I can use him as a starting pitcher. So you can Craig, in your software, you can edit players if you want to. Correct?
Oh yes, you can, and you'll notice like you might only have one position for that player. But when you look at the team stats, which is underneath the pitcher box, it pulls up their full stats for that year, but you also see every position they played. And so if you wanted them to play third base because he played third base that year, you can edit that in.
Yeah, there was an outfielder for the Yankees that was not rated for outfield, but he played outfield when I went to whatever the game. I looked up. I like to try to put in the actual batting order for the game. And somebody was in the outfield that wasn't rated outfield, and I just went in and said outfield, and I saved it. Next thing you know, this guy's available to play all the outfield positions. I mean, that's how versatile the software is in this game.
I haven't played with the software, but that's great.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you could probably even take a positional player and make him a pitcher, I would think, correct?
Oh yes, it allows you to create anything you want. And if you're not sure if he should be an A, B, C, or D, you can put in actual stats. You can give him, say you think he's a 3.35 ERA, and you can put those stats in the box, and it will convert it to the A, B, C, D ratings for your player.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
I did not know that. Yeah.
So Anthony Rizzo can strike out Freddie Freeman.
Yes, you can actually go to that and put him in the game. The other neat thing that Kurt brought up was with that creative player, you can actually take your kid's softball team and put them in there and use their actual averages from the season and make them part of the game.
Oh, wow. That's kind of neat.
That's incredible.
So, Ron, I could put you in the game, and you could be a D level on everything.
It's right under your F level of management.
Anyway, hey, all right. So we got a couple of questions from the community. One to ask you before we go. One of them asks, it's something we've kind of actually talked a little bit about this already, but ask them about changing the way that base stealing takes place, maybe by adding a catcher's arm level or something like that.
I guess the overall thing is, do you guys ever plan on doing any individual ratings outside of what you have? So catcher's arms or
outfielder's arms or something like that.
Arms or speed or
just maybe just reference the defensive rating of the player compared to the base runner. Because right now stealing is just base runner, roll the die. And if you're an A base runner, I think only a 1 or a 2 on that 12-sided die gets you out. So it's fairly easy.
It doesn't matter if Johnny benches the catcher or me.
Yeah.
So that was
exactly.
one. Well, that was just one question we had about the base stealing.
Yeah, no, it's certainly something that Craig and I both talked about. We've also talked about outfielder arm strength. If a guy is trying to tag, or if a guy is trying to extend, stretch a single to a double, does the outfielder arm come into account? And we're definitely looking at that stuff. If we were to implement it, it wouldn't be until a version that we would probably release next year. We're not trying to change anything immediately. But again, we're trying to keep everything within the context of what's not going to muddy up the game too much. People seem to enjoy the game the way it is, and we don't want to mess with a good thing. So we're definitely going to look at some of these things and figure out, is there sort of a non-obtrusive way to fit this in? And Ron, you had asked about, would we add more ratings? Maybe, but we love the simplicity of.
No, I think that's the selling point of the game.
Yeah.
Personally.
So it's just kind of what road do we want to go down? How deep down the rabbit hole do we want to go? Because if we add this, then why don't you add this, and then also add
well,
this?
Again, maybe it's something down the line you can have an advanced version of this where the base runner checks the catcher's defensive rating or the right fielder's defensive rating. That's going to be his arm strength as well, or something like that. Just kind of throwing that suggestion out there. So again, like I say, you could have an advanced version of this at some point there where you can factor in some of this extra stuff there. But that was the one question we have. Let me see another question we have. Someone asked why there was no unusual plays or injuries, and I did respond back and said there are injuries, but there are no unusual plays in this game. Correct?
Yeah, and it comes down to that would require another chart, and that's more cards you got to lay out in front of you. Honestly, the injury chart for me was I debated over whether or not that was even necessary. Would it have been fine with just 7 charts? Do we really need that 8th injury chart? And at the end of the day, I was like, to me, that sort of that appeased my mind for sort of the unusual play was the injury. But yeah, there's There's no box. There's no, what else would be an unusual play?
There's no pop-ups in the game. I think Kurt brought that up.
Pop-ups. Yeah, we've heard a lot about that one. We're working on that. Yeah, it all just came down to, where can we trim the fat? If there's anything that's like, is that really necessary? We didn't include it. Did it really affect I know for me, when I'm playing the game, I'm not going, oh gosh, I sure wish there would have been a catcher's interference or a balk,
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't affect my enjoyment of the game at all. I play baseball because I want to see hits and home runs, and I want to see guys thrown out of the plate. I want to see double plays, and it's like, that's why we watch baseball, not for these like little minute things.
Yeah.
So while I do respect the fact that, they are part of the game, and if we wanted to be 100% statistically accurate, we would include them. At the end of the day, it's like, where can we trim out stuff that is just so rare that
exactly.
There's no triple plays in the game either. Triple plays are great, but
future expansion for players. The game ships with every major league season from 1871, the last 10 years of the Japanese league, the last 10 years of the Korean league. Am I missing anything there? Are there Negro leagues in the
Yes, the Negro League from the 20s to the 48.
Okay.
It pretty much encompasses most of the data that is out there for the Negro League.
Right. Mike Lynch.
That was a tough one because they had different leagues. Mm-hmm. They didn't just have one league. They had several different leagues. And
they barnstormed a lot, too.
In the same year, a team would play in both leagues.
Yeah.
And that was kind of confusing. Expansion, yes, we're looking at adding more years to the Japanese and Korean leagues, obviously. Okay. I have Cuba in the works, Mexico, and something I got excited about the other day and started work on is AAA minor league.
Oh, I was going to ask about the minor leagues. Yeah, fantastic. Mm-hmm. That's fantastic.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
And that'll be...
Did you want to also mention the update that you told me about today with the software? I think this would be a good time to talk about it, hopefully.
Yes, if we're talking about expansions, you Mac players are going to be happy. We have a Mac release coming out hopefully by the end of this week, and you will be set to use the software also. That was one of the main reasons we included all the team cards, was people who use just phones and tablets, they can't use a Mac or Windows software. So, and then the Mac users were feeling left out. So we got the team cards in there, and I wasn't satisfied with it. I wanted to get the Mac version down. So we've got, hopefully by the end of the week, we'll have a Mac version out also.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's good news. Yeah, because I saw some people asking about that as well. That's great. Just before I get to another question here, as far as the injury things go, how that works is if all three dice come out on the same number, that's when you go to the injury chart. So that's how you get there. I personally haven't been using them, and I had
that
it come up.
Something I would ignore.
I had a situation come up where I rolled 3 12s, and it's like, that's a home run, and I'm not taking that away from the guy, and I'm not going to the injury chart. And I think I had 3 11s come up, and I ignored that too. So it's rare to come up, but it's there. I suppose if somebody wanted to create a homebrew rare play chart, what you could do is if the 3 dice come up all the same, then you can roll a die to determine if it's an injury or a rare play and come up with your own. That might be a way around that. I'm just kind of spitballing
Reggie
here.
Jackson rule: you'll pull a hamstring, thinking yourself rounding second.
Yeah. The injury chart. That was there if you did like league play and stuff like that. And honestly, as far as the severity of the injuries, the highest severity is 3 games. But if you're going to play a longer league, you're going to want maybe that most severe injury to be more like 20 games or something like that, or even like, in dead ball, they include a season-ending injury in there as well. So
yeah, that's a little crazy.
You can do whatever you want. This is just what seemed to work for us in our leagues. But adding that injury is just a little extra level of intrigue. I gotta sub in somebody, or this guy's not available for a couple of games.
Right. Okay.
So extra strategy.
I got to rip through these last couple questions because Ron's got to go here. But are there any plans to ship to the UK? We got some UK players that couldn't get a ship to the UK.
Actually, I'll take that one. We will start shipping internationally when the games come back in stock.
Okay.
Cool beans.
All right. Sounds good.
Probably have to go through a messaging with the customer to get the actual shipping down, because we can't include that, unfortunately. But all the U.S. shippers will still get free shipping with their game.
Okay.
Awesome.
And let's see, are there any plans to add compiling stats to the software? Because you got the ability to sim the games. It'd be great if you could use that to keep all the standings and the stats.
That is one of the numerous things that we would look to add in also.
Okay, so that's something you're looking at.
Got my wish list already working.
All right, I imagine it's going to get bigger. Yeah. And the last question here, do you plan on making games for any other sports? You did such a good job with this one here. It'd be a shame if you made a really good hockey game.
Drooling over a hockey game, okay?
I couldn't pretend to know enough about the intricacies of hockey, or really football for that matter, to do one.
Okay.
Yeah, baseball is my first love, and I played a lot of football as a kid, and I actually worked on some software for a football game, and it was mind-boggling on each play, the number of different things to take into account. So right now, no, we're going to stick to baseball.
Baseball just lends itself so well to this type of game. Really, I think more than any other sport, it just lends itself
really,
to.
I was just amazed at just pulling it out and filling out the score sheet, just how well it played without anything. And it felt like baseball, and that's what you're looking for.
Cool.
I'm going to ask this to Matt first, and then I want an answer from Craig. Was there a moment for you when you went, aha, we have it, in playtesting? And that, what was the Eureka moment for here? We'll start with Matt.
For me, probably the closest thing to a Eureka moment was once we figured out the 3 die system, and that sort of this like tiered result, and you looked at each die, because I spent so much time with different combinations of dice that once I figured out, okay, you could figure everything out on 3 dice, that was sort of an aha moment for me. Everything else was really just a very unglamorous, like slow, making tiny adjustments. Like it was very slow and painstaking and boring. And Craig and I would talk pretty much like every day over the summer. And we just play test games and tweak something a little bit. I mean, I must have sent Craig 100 different iterations of this charts page with all sorts of different little adjustments. So that was the closest thing to an aha moment for me. Everything else was just a very slow and boring process.
What about for you, Craig?
The 3 dice was definitely a winner for me. But I think the way Matt had designed a defensive play where I can look at 1 die and come up with either a ground ball ruling or a fly out ruling and what's going to happen. And it takes into compass just about every situation you can have on the field. Mm-hmm. You've got your tag outs at home. You've got your times where it's hit the third and the guy makes it home because he's slow and it's only a throw to first. Mm-hmm. And it was simple to look at and figure out. And like you said, you can make the play up in your head, exactly what's happening. Why did he not throw home? Come on, the game's tied. Why didn't you throw home for the guy? Well, it was a squibbler. That's the reason. It was a squibbler. His only chance was to get that second out. Mm-hmm. So when I saw his defensive play and how simple he had gotten the entire game down, I knew it was that we were in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
Super.
Yeah, I like that. Like I said, ground ball to third, maybe it hit him in the leg and it bounced away from him, and the guy he couldn't get the guy at home, but he still could get the guy at first. I mean, any of that stuff could happen, So,
and one thing I really like about this community of tabletop gamers, it's not like you just play a game and then you tell everybody whether they won or lost. Guys love to come up with narratives, and I really enjoyed that in our Dead Ball League. That we had a couple guys in the league who would write like a 5-paragraph, like detailed explanation of what happened in the game. And, when something like that happened that was sort of open to interpretation, they would come up with a really interesting thing that happened in the game. Like it wasn't just a guy didn't just make a catch in left field. He made this over the wall catch, so it leaves a lot of opportunity to sort of fill in your own narrative and create your own story and then kind of retell that story to other people. So awesome. I think that's really cool.
All righty. So where can we find this game? If people want to find this game, where can we find this game?
The website is pocketpennintrun.weebly.com, and Weebly is WEEBLY. So pocketpennintrun.weebly.com. That's the website. There's a link to the store. You can buy, like I said, the PDF is in stock right now. Will always be in stock. Physical games should be in stock here in just about a week or two. And we've got all-star card sets as well. We've also got a couple accessories that we're working on right now to kind of add to the game that we think people will really like. We're also working on some more physical card sets as well. So more will be coming out here in the next couple of weeks and months, but that's where you can go to get it.
Okay.
Congrats. You got a winner there, boys.
Yeah, you do. So again, Pocket Pennant Run.weebly, WEEBLY.com. And you also have a Facebook group. Just search Pocket Pennant Run. Or head over to the Digital Dice Facebook group because we're always linking stuff over there as well to get over to Pocket Pennant Run there. All righty. The PDF cost $10, right?
Mm-hmm.
$10 gets you the PDFs, so the instructions, the charts, all those teams and seasons we talked about, and the software, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So you get everything for 10. How did you come up with $10 for a price?
We wanted everybody to play.
Mm-hmm. You
Basically, we didn't want some of these baseball games are daunting. Any board game, some of the ones I buy $60, $70, $80, and it really, that's a budget cruncher sometimes. And we wanted this in the hands of everybody that was interested in playing baseball.
Mm-hmm. All right, fantastic there. You guys stay. We're going to sign off, but you guys stay here. We get some parting gifts. I always say that. We don't, but I always like to say that. But again, it is Matt McKeever and Craig Harris from Pocket Pennant Run. Thank you so much for being on Digital Dice.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Dave and Ron.
Thank you.
By the numbers. Episode 118 of the Digital Dice Podcast. Great interview.
Oh, my goodness. Was it ever?
I could have talked to those guys all day about their game. I love their game. I do.
For a first-time joint effort, they've gone above and beyond the software. I can't believe.
I didn't even notice that at first. I just printed out the cards and I was playing on the table, and then I was like, what's this software do? Holy cow, it's going to spit out the rosters with all the ratings on it, so I don't got to write anything down or look at anything except my roster sheet there. Oh, it makes playing such a joy. It makes it so fast to play a game and so fun. It really is.
And everything about the way the game plays, I thought, was extremely well thought out.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, from the charts to the just how everything's laid out. It's a very, very clean game. We talked about it. It's a very clean game.
Complete, yes.
It really is.
For the price point, there's really nothing to argue about.
Yeah, was it $10 for the PDF version, and that comes with the computer software.
Right.
And if you want a printed version of the charts and some dice,
it's $19.95.
Yeah, it's like $20 if you want the stuff sent to you there, and it comes in a little box as well.
Yep.
I just have the PDF printed in one. I don't have the individual cards cut out for the chart. I just have it on.
They're sold out right now.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as what I did, I printed out the one page.
Yep.
And I like that, so I didn't cut those up because I just got them all right in front of me. It's one page of charts. Yeah, that's it. It's nice and easy.
So it's a beautifully simple game.
It is. It's a lot of fun.
Do whatever you want with it. So.
And I believe it's pocketpennantrun.weebly.com, and Weebly is WEEBLY.com. Pocketpenantrun.weebly.com. Go over there, and if you get the PDF for $10, you immediately get the downloads. There's no waiting. There's no confirmation. It's like, boop, here you go. It pops up on the screen. In the email, it does it as well. So, yeah, it comes immediately across, and you can start playing in minutes. It's really great. Anyway, ways to get a hold of us. Our website is digitaltodice.com. Over on Spreaker, that's where we park all of our shows. The text line, 978-751-DICE, 978-751-3423 if you want to send us a text. Email us, digitaltodice@yahoo.com is our email. And over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. We want to thank everybody that gave us a question to ask. Yes. Matt and Craig, we asked as many as we could. We had a little bit of a time constraint there, so we asked as many as we could. But I think we got to the heart of what's going on with this game and the future of this game. So, anyway.
Awesome job, boys. Awesome job. Yep.
Ron, thanks for joining me.
As always.
How was your holidays, by the way? Good?
I had a very good Christmas and New Year's. Did you?
I just ate too much. There was too much food.
There always is too much food. That's the whole purpose.
I ate ham for like 7 days. There was just so many leftovers. And we had cream pies. And I'm getting hungry. I got to go. We'll see you.
All right. Bye-bye.